The idea that the Jordan River stopped flowing to let Joshua and the Israelites cross on dry land is one reason to question the entire book of Joshua.
Normally the Jordan River flows too swiftly to be crossed by foot, but often after earthquakes the river is dammed, sometimes up to a couple of days, like it happened in 1906. I'm convinced that the drying up of the Jordan River during Joshua's conquest was similarly a result of an earthquake. We have a great deal of evidence, scientific evidence, that the walls of Jericho have collapsed by an earthquake, just the way described in the Bible. The best evidence are the skeletons that were uncovered in Jericho, 1400 BC, which were obviously destroyed by a collapsed wall.
Remnants of that wall are still there today. In fact, I have one of the mud bricks right here. It's about 3,400 years old. On this embankment, there were houses constructed. As the archaeologists excavated within the city, they found abundant evidence that there was earthquake activity at the time the city met its end. When they excavated at the base of this outer stone revetment wall, they found piles of collapsed mud bricks, as we see here in the drawing. Now, even though these mud brick walls collapsed and fell, the stone wall, the 12-foot-high stone wall, is still there today. How did the Israelites get over that? Well, the way that the mud bricks fell, they formed a ramp so that the Israelites could merely go up over that ramp and into the city and set it ablaze. Within the city, they found great quantity of grain. It was very evident that the end came just after harvest time. Again, this agrees with the biblical story. It's very unusual to find large amounts of grain in an ancient site. Here at Jericho, they found in almost every building great jars full of grain. Usually that would have been plundered because it was very valuable. The Bible tells us, however, that the Israelites were forbidden to plunder the city, that it was to be offered up to God. The fact that there was a lot of grain there indicates that there was a very short siege of the city. The Bible says the siege lasted but 7 days. All of the details that the archaeologists have found agree precisely with the biblical narrative.
Joshua 10:12-14 says, Then spake Joshua to the Lord in the day when the Lord delivered up the Amorites before the children of Israel. And he said in the sight of Israel, Sun, stand thou still upon Gibeon, and thou moon in the valley of Abjalon. And the sun stood still, and the moon stayed, until the people had avenged themselves upon their enemies. So the sun stood still in the midst of heaven, and hasted not to go down about a whole day. And there was no day like that before it or after it, that the Lord hearkened unto the voice of a man, for the Lord fought for Israel. If this unprecedented event in the heavens really had happened, it would have affected other ancient civilizations, not? The Babylonians, Professor Jensen reports, have an account for a day of twice normal length. The Peruvians have an ancient notation of a day that lasted twice the normal time, according to Professor Ocott. Seneca, a Roman writer, records the sun reversing its course and blotting out the night. Greek historian Herodotus recorded that when he visited Egypt, the priest there showed him an ancient manuscript that told the story of a day that lasted twice as long as a normal day. Egypt, Ferdinand Krombet translated some Egyptian hieroglyphics that said, The sun, thrown into confusion, had remained low on the horizon, and by not rising had spread terror amongst the great doctors. 2 days had been rolled into one. The Kishmaeans of Guatemala, they did not sleep. They remained standing, and great was the anxiety of their hearts and their stomachs for the coming of the dawn and the day. Oh, if we only could see the rising of the sun. Now, if you had an unusually long day in Israel, What would you expect on the opposite side of the globe? Well, the Aztecs of Mexico, who were very sophisticated astronomers, report in ancient times both the sun and the moon stood still shortly after sunrise. So a conclave of the gods was called and a sacrifice made. The North American tribe, the Omahas, tell of the sun being caught in a rabbit's trap and only released just before dawn. Could God reorder our day? He wants you to focus beyond what you can see.